ABC News. Around the world and into your home. The stories that touch your life. This is 2020 with Barbara Walt Gibson and Hugh Downs. Tonight, a story right out of a horror movie. A neighborhood terrified by a mysterious, menacing caller.
He changed our lives forever.
He seemed to know their every move, their most private moments, even what they were wearing.
It was like he was in the house with us all the time.
Hundreds of calls, month after month, striking fear into family after family. Who was the man on the phone? How did he know so much about them?
What people are describing is the sickest, meanest kind of behavior, John.
Tonight, you'll meet him and hear a chilling tale that could easily happen to you. Chief Correspondent Chris Wallace with a warning about the power of cordless phones in the privacy of your own home. Someone may be listening.
From ABC News in New York, Diane Sawyer and Charles Gibson.
Good evening and welcome to 2020 Wednesday. Sam is away and I'm sure glad my morning partner is back by my side. We promised that tonight we are going to change the way you think about a modern convenience many of us use every day in our homes, the cordless telephone. It sure makes life easier, but it turns out it can also make you a target for an outrageous crime.
Think of what you say in your phone conversations. You talk about where you're going, who's at home, where your children are. But now imagine that information in the wrong hands. Our chief correspondent, Chris Wallace, joins us with a story about what can happen when someone is listening. Chris?
Charlie, it happened to people living in a neighborhood in Virginia Beach, Virginia. People who were terrified by a caller who seemed to know all about them. What none of the victims realized was that every time they picked up a cordless phone, they were giving the caller information he would later use to torment them. The phone calls were bizarre, even frightening.
It scared me to death. I mean, who in the world would want to do this to me?
It was the neighborhood's worst nightmare. A mysterious caller invaded the lives of all these people.
It made us afraid to go outside, to keep the shades closed, and because you were afraid he was watching you.
While they didn't know who he was, the caller seemed to know all about them, even what they were doing at that moment.
I would change my clothes and he would tell me what I had changed my clothes to. It was like living with this person. It was like he was in the house with us all the time.
But who was the telephone intruder? How and why was he doing this? Virginia Beach prosecutor Bob Humphreys, who handled the case, says investigators were as baffled as people in the neighborhood.
These folks were literally terrorized by this guy over a period of months.
This is the man who made the calls, a 31-year-old former electronics technician named John Halstead. Police believe that for 2 years, Halstead eavesdropped on hundreds of people and then used what he overheard to terrify more than a dozen victims.
It all started out as kind of a prank, practical joke. It just got a little out of hand.
Is that what you think? It got a little out of hand?
Yeah, it kind of got out of hand.
He thinks he made a few phone calls and that's it. He changed our lives forever.
It all happened in this middle-class community here in Virginia Beach, the kind of place where parents send their kids out to play in the street. Everyone here assumed the caller who was terrorizing them must be an outsider, never suspecting that, in fact, he lived right here among them in this townhouse. Up in his bedroom, Halstead spent hours listening to this police scanner. Units like this cost a couple of $100s at any electronics store. Scanners pick up police communications transmitted by radio waves.
Can I get a 2829 on a Virginia tag? It's going to be Virginia 2000.
But they can also be used illegally to intercept calls on cordless telephones up to a mile away. How easy is it? One of the neighbors, Jenny Herrett, agreed to let us conduct a test to see if we could overhear one of her conversations on a cordless phone.
So I guess I'll leave here about 2 o'clock. I'm going to hit the ATM in the mall, get a few things there.
When neighbors ordered pizza or talked to friends, Halstead was listening in, getting information, such as where and when the family was going out, details of their personal business. What did you hear?
Just people in casual conversation.
And how long would you listen to them?
Well, a couple minutes, but that's not really what I was into.
Halstead claims all he cared about was seeing how far away he could pick up cordless phone conversations.
It wasn't the content I was interested in. I wasn't listening to the content. It was actually just the signal, the radio signal I was interested in.
But his victims say that's a lie. They say Halstead called them at all hours, day and night, with threats tailored just for them.
He had been watching me, and you got a van, and we can really do something in that van.
He knew that I had a Rottweiler, and at one point he told me that he was going to tie me to the bed and have the dog rape me.
It didn't stop there. According to police, a gay man was harassed about his sexual orientation, and there were threats to rape and kill kids. The caller once told parents that while they thought their 14-year-old daughter was at the mall, she might really be with him. Jenny and Keith Harrod had just finished dinner with their 2 young children one evening when their phones started ringing.
Every 2 minutes for like the first 30 minutes. And then it went to like every minute, and then every other second.
And how many calls did you get that
The first night between 150 and 200.
This was every day for 5 months, all day long.
Through the night?
Through the night.
How did you sleep?
You didn't. You never slept.
As the neighborhood came under siege by telephone, people disrupted their daily lives. Sheila Artis runs a business from home and was afraid to go outside.
I didn't open a window. I didn't open a door.
He made you a hostage in your own home?
Yes.
Their children felt like hostages, too. Parents wouldn't let their kids out to play. They drove their children to school so they didn't have to go to the bus stop. Jenny Harrod says her kids sensed her fear.
My son, who was 5 at the time, he barricaded the door. He's like, "No, Mommy, you're not going out. There's somebody that's going to hurt you. I'm not letting you leave." And that was just too much.
Virginia Beach police detectives investigated for months, but neither they nor the phone company could figure out who the caller was. Why on earth would you do this to your neighbors?
Well, I really didn't think too much about it at the time.
But had these people ever done anything bad to you?
No.
Ever bothered you? Ever harassed you?
No.
What people are describing is the sickest, meanest kind of behavior, John. Phone calls, day and night, threatening to rape people, threatening people's children, terrorizing them.
Well, that's what may have been said, but that's not actually what occurred.
Halstead denies ever making any threatening call. He says he would just hack into empty voice mailboxes and then send pre-recorded messages that could not be traced back to him.
I never called anyone up and told them what they were wearing or anything even similar to that.
Well, why would these people make this story up?
I believe they were scared.
One thing Halstead admits he did was take over some of his neighbors' voicemail.
Welcome to Bell Atlantic's voice messaging service.
By intercepting them, punching in their security codes. Once in a mailbox, he could change the greeting, and the neighbor couldn't change it back.
It said, "Yo, yo, yo, you've reached the 1-800-SEX hotline. If you want to have sex with men, press 1. If you want to have sex with women, press 2.
I don't, it's been quite some time, so I really don't remember, but that sounds familiar.
How would you feel if people were calling you up without your knowing it, and when they get your number, they hear, "Yo, yo, yo, it's the 1-800-SEX line"?
Well, I would be a bit mad.
A bit mad?
Yes.
Was this a game for you?
It was a challenge.
Were you having fun?
Yeah.
What Halstead did to these people could happen to a lot of us. There are 115 million cordless phones in America. And unless you have one of the newer digital models or a special scrambling feature, your cordless phone can turn your home into a radio station, broadcasting to anyone in the area who has a scanner.
Maybe we can get you some food or something. Oh, yeah, I haven't done that forever.
Did any of you realize how vulnerable you were using a cordless phone?
No idea that this could happen.
After 2 years, Halstead was finally caught.
I don't know.
When Susan Dalton remembered that he once bragged he had a scanner. With the help of phone company records, police put it all together. When police finally arrested Halstead, they searched his home and say that he was living like a hermit in his bedroom with a 6-foot pile of trash and pizza boxes. What they found confirmed that Halstead was not only eavesdropping on his neighbors, but also keeping notes on what he overheard.
The yellow highlights represent victims. Now,
Police discovered maps in Halstead's home. He had marked the exact location of each victim. They also found handwritten notes Halstead kept on the intimate details of his neighbors' lives. This one includes the names of girlfriends, the bank the neighbor used, even a credit card number. Wait a minute, John. I thought you said that you weren't interested in the content of these conversations.
Well, the reason for the addresses was to pinpoint the location.
And what was the reason for the credit card numbers?
That was just some other information. I never used it. I'm not even sure why I wrote it down.
You were taking notes of their names, their addresses, their kids' names, their telephone numbers. I mean, you were working up files on these people.
I can't go on this line of questioning.
Can you explain yourself? How did you feel when you learned that it was one of your neighbors who was doing this?
I was horrified. I was just dumbfounded.
It scared the death out of me. It made me not want to live there.
Halstead pleaded guilty to 21 counts of illegally intercepting phone calls and making telephone threats. He faced 65 years in prison, but the neighbors were outraged when he ended up having to serve just 20 months.
He should not have gotten away with this so easily.
And do you feel that in some sense he got away with it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. He very much got away with this.
What has them upset now is that a few weeks ago, Halstead was set free. What did he learn from his 20 months in prison? What does he think of his punishment?
I don't believe I'm guilty because it's information that's readily accessible to the general public. It's a radio transmission.
It was a private phone call, John.
That I understand. But the way that I was able to listen shows that it's not actually tapping into their line and invading their privacy.
Prosecutors point out that a psychological report done in Halstead's own defense said he suffers from a personality disorder. According to Halstead, doctors predicted a 1 in 3 chance he'll commit a violent act within 10 years. His former neighbors fear the worst.
I have secured my house. I've chained my gate. And it's really sad that I have to do that.
The prosecutor believes they may have reason to worry.
There's no reason to believe for a moment that he is going to alter his outlook on life such that I can control people, I can hurt people, and maybe I'll do it again.
As for Halstead, he says he's sorry for the trouble he caused and that his ex-neighbors have nothing to worry about. What would you think if you heard about a person who was sitting in his room at night, listening to other people's conversations, putting pins in maps and taking notes? What would you think of that person?
I'm not sure.
Would you think it was a little strange?
Possibly, but everybody has their hobbies.
Experts say if you have one of the older cordless phones, remember, anyone with a scanner can be listening in. The best way to protect yourself is to be careful about giving out personal or financial information on a cordless phone. By the way, John Halstead claims he hasn't listened to a scanner since he was released from prison. He tells us he's now living in a different neighborhood and is looking for a job. And he says he's even explored working for the phone company. Diane?
Oh, boy. Thanks, Chris. Good to see you.